Hello. If you want to learn a simple way to manage and track consignment sales in Paladin, you're in the right place. My name is Charles Owen. Welcome and thank you everybody for attending today. We're going to get started here momentarily. Just want to let you know that I am recording this so you can replay this at any time. Share it with your coworkers or whoever. So we're going to be talking about increasing revenue by managing consignments with Paladin. So on the agenda today, what you'll learn is, first of all, we're going to talk about what does it mean to sell on consignment, and then how to build the foundation in Paladin, selling items on consignment, and reporting on items on consignment, and some of the options that you have. You know, consignment sales is pretty simple. You just add an item to inventory, sell it, pay the commission of the person you sold the item for, and you're done. However, if you want to track sales and if you want to track the commissions and the cuts for each side of the house, then this is probably the right webinar for you, because we're going to teach you how to do that very easily and very simple in Paladin. So let's start with what is selling on consignment. Consignment is an arrangement in which goods are left with a third party to sell. The party that sells the goods on consignment receives a portion of the profits, either as a flat fee or a commission. That's pretty standard. Paladin can help manage consignments by setting up a consignment department, setting up consignment customers, managing the inventory and organizing the revenue and commission income reporting. So that's what we're going to learn. So the first thing is setting up a consignment department. Why is this important? Well, it helps you, it gives you a mechanism to track the revenue and report on items in a specific department. So if you isolate all the consignment items into a set department, into a unique department, then that way you can really break out those reports. So to do that, very simple. This is a one-time where you'll go and you'll set the department up. So you just go under File Setup and you select the Department tab, select New, and you put an ID and a name in. I would recommend that you put a ID that is at the kind of the end of the row of departments, or way down there towards the end, so that you can isolate it even more. In this case, I made it Consignment Department 5000. That puts at the end of the list of IDs and names for departments. And then just give it a label of consignment. Real simple. Save it and you're done. That's a one-time setup. Now any item that you submit to sell on consignment, you're going to be able to assign it to this particular department. Next is adding a consignment supplier. Well, what is a consignment supplier? Well, that's your customer that wants you to sell something for them. So when a customer is interested in selling through consignment, the best approach is to add them as a supplier in Paladin. This makes it really easy to track for reporting purposes, as well as managing their specific commissions and or percentage of sales. So how do you do that? This is a one-time again. This is if you have somebody that's expressed interest in you selling something for them, and you will of course take part of that, share in that revenue as well. Well, first thing I would recommend is add the consignment person as a supplier in Paladin. And I would preface that name, in this case it's John Doe, with a CON and then a hyphen and then the person's name. That way, when you look at a list of all of the suppliers and wherever you're inquiring from, whether it's in the inventory mode or the like, you can type in the search CON hyphen and it will find all of the consignment customers. You can also report on all the consignment customers, and it just makes it really easy all the way around to identify consignment suppliers / customers versus other suppliers / vendors. All right, so from the main menu, select File Setup, select the Supplier tab, and then you just add in an ID and the word, the name, which again, preface it with CON hyphen and the person's name, and then just save it. And that's all there is to it. You can also fill in the rest of the material, the rest of the questions on here, like address, phone number, email. It's nice to have that in there. And then if you wanted to put an account number in, you can just use the same ID that you assign to this particular supplier as an account number as well. It's not required, but it's just nice to fill in all the blanks. So now what's required? Now you have to add a consignment item into inventory. So we've got the department, it's all set up. We've added the supplier or the consignment customer. And now you're ready to add your consignment item into inventory. Nothing super special here, guys. This is just really easy. We're just taking you through the motions here so that you know how to do it. So first of all, you just go into inventory, you select add item, F2, down at the bottom left-hand side, and then this window will pop up that you see here. Now you can enter a part number, and I would recommend also not only prefacing the supplier with CON dash, but also prefacing the part number for the inventory items with a C dash. And that way it would be, in this case, C dash. I just put a random number 0007 in there. So it makes it really easy to search for all consignment items if you're searching for, if you're recalling an item to add to checkout. Alt part number, you can add it or leave it blank. We have a nice little convenient next X number button that you can press, and will assign a alternate for you. It is totally optional and not required. And then description, you're just going to put in your description. For cost, you'll enter a 0. For sales price, you'll enter the price in what you think you can sell the item for. And you know, a lot of times with consignment items, it's negotiable. Price may vary, but just go ahead and put in a price that you and your consignment supplier / customer agreed on. And the stock on hand would be a 0. And then department, of course, you would assign it to the 5000 ID consignment department. That way, isolating these items from all the other items in the inventory. Now, why are we entering a 0? I'll share that information with you. I mean, if you just add a number 1 in here for stock on hand, that works, guys. It works, but it doesn't give you the history. It doesn't give you, you know, exactly when it was received. There's so many things that you can get, so many benefits you can get if you follow the best practices. So let's continue on here. So assigning a consignment supplier to the new inventory item. So now that you've created an item, of course you have 0 in stock still at this point, unless you put a 1, which would circumvent the entire next few slides. But now you're ready to associate the supplier to that item. How do you do that? Real simple. You just go into the order control tab. The bottom says suppliers F11, and you just add the suppliers, and you hit add, and you add. You know, you can search for them by CON, and it will just list all of those on the screen for you, and you can select the one. In this case, it's just our John Doe. And now this supplier or consignment customer has now been assigned to this particular item. All right, now we need to establish a consignment price for the new item. So once you agreed upon the price, you go ahead and put that price in. Now we did this, we put a preliminary price in there, but we're going to the pricing tab for a very specific reason, because we have to add another field on pricing. This is the reference margin. It's very important to put a reference margin in. If you have a reference margin in, you can have the system figure out what the commission is going to be for you and or for your consignment customer / supplier. So in this case, I put 50. So 50%. That means that whatever you sell the item for, whether it's $300 or $100, 50% of the margin will be assigned to you, the store owner, and 50% will be assigned to the customer. If it's a 60-40 split, and you're giving 40% to the store and 60% to the consignment supplier, then you can just go ahead and add 60% there, or in this case, actually in your case, it would be 40%, because you would be taking the 40%. And if you put 40 here for a reference margin, it will automatically, again, depending on whether you sell for, if you sold for $300, it would be 40% to you, which is $120, and 60% to the customer, $180. Real simple. The math's all done for you. All you need to do is tell it how much of the profits are you taking, how much of the margin are you taking. And again, even if it doesn't sell for $300, whatever the selling price is, because you have a reference margin in, and a cost of 0, it will automatically assume that whatever reference margin you put in there is what you're receiving, even if you sell it for, $295. All right. So receiving a consignment item into stock on hand. Now, there's a number of ways to do this. So now that you have an item in the inventory, you need to add stock to hand on it. Best practice really suggests that you enter the product into a purchase order and receive it into stock using the PO method. This process is the most favorable option for accounting purposes, but there are easier ways. Number one, I mentioned to you already, you can put one for stock on hand if you're not really interested in tracking a lot when that item came in or anything like that. So there is that, just changing that stock on hand to 1 when you add the item in, or you can use the F5 manual receive button. That at least tracks when it was received into stock, and it's really helpful. But really, if you were doing the best practice, you would create a PO, add that item to it, and then receive that item, receive that invoice. Okay. So here we go. So to receive a consignment item into stock, using the preferred PO receive order method, first create your order using the process below. So you've done this before, you just go into the PO module. From the supplier list, you select the consignment supplier that you created. Again, you can search by CON and it'll put all of those suppliers for consignment suppliers / customers in order. And then under part number, you can enter the part number that you created for the item. Now, press enter, and under quantity, you can enter the amount of items being received. So you just put a quantity. If it's just 1 clawfoot tub, then great. Now, if you don't know the part number, I will show you how you can search for these items. Particularly if you put a C dash before the part number, it makes it really easy, because you just search for C-0 under the keyword and it pulls it right up. Or you can search by the consignment department as well. All right, so once we enter our quantity, then we press the enter twice, F8 to confirm the PO, and then we press the buy button. And what that does is it initiates the purchase of this particular item. So at that point, this purchase is made, and now the next step is to go in and receive that item. So you can make the purchase before you receive it. So let's say somebody calls you and says, hey, I'll have this item, I want to sell on consignment, I want to sell for $500, here's what it is. You can go ahead and put all that information in. You can order it, and then once it comes through the door and is there available to sell, you can then go through this process, which again, these are like 1 and 2, return type of things. Very easy, not a whole lot of steps involved here. But to receive the item officially in, you just go into the PO module, toggle the F5 mode PO to receive mode, and then on the bottom of the PO, you press F6 find PO. PO comes right up. You'll see the vendor, CON dash. There might be other things on this list. Obviously, there will be other things on this list if you're using POs. But here you can identify just that particular one that you're receiving. And then that's it. And then click open, receive PO, process, and then you hit process a second time. You've done this before, very simple to do, just a couple of keystrokes, and you've now received your product. So now that it's in inventory, it's ready to sell. Now you can go ahead and sell it, right? Again, there are other options for receiving into stock. I like the long way. It just gives more traceability. But again, you could just do a manual F5 receive, or add that number 1 to the stock on hand when you first add the item. But here we go, how to sell it. Well, how do you sell anything? Go to invoice and quote, under the part number, you enter the item's part number. Again, if you can't remember the part number, you can search by keyword or department. This is why we put the C dash before the part number. It just makes it uber simple to identify all the consignment items. If you've got, even if you have hundreds of them, you can put that C-0 and try to get closer to what you're looking for. You can also search within these results and search for clawfoot. So once you get the results, then you hit F1 again. You can see it to the right there with the little binoculars, and then it will enable you to search a second time from that list that's already been brought up on the screen. That's it. Enter your items and add items to invoice. And then next, you're just gonna hit checkout. On the bottom ribbon, select the checkout tab, select the payment type, press enter to complete the sale. And that's it. So now that you've sold it, you're gonna look at what are the different ways I can report on this. I need to provide a report to my customer. Let's say the customer comes and says, hey, I know I've got 5 consignment items with you. What's the status of each of these? Have they sold? Have they not sold? If they did, what's my commission? What's my cut? When are you going to pay me? I mean, these are all things that you can get from the various reports. So just to name a few of the reports that you can get that has this information on it, and it's different information for each report, obviously, but you have the comparative revenue report. That's the most logical. Transaction report, that's an itemized detail report. Inventory count list, that's more of a broad approach, and same with master report and summary report. But looking at in particular the comparative revenue report, this one is probably the best tool that you're going to use to figure out what your gains are and margins as well as commission, not just for you, but also for the customer. So you just go into comparative revenue report. Again, in Paladin, you select the reports module. You select sales, analysis, and revenue. And then you can select, period comparative report, today's, whatever it is. But I would do period comparative revenue report and change that date range. Choose the report you want. And in the settings, you're going to put your date ranges. And then you can check the box that says export to Excel. So you want to do this on a computer that you have Excel on. You don't have to do an Excel. It's just easier. It just gives you a nice little list in a column and row format. Makes it real simple to look at. And then you can break it down by different details. So the details you have here, so this is part of the criteria that you select when you go into comparative revenue report. Select detail by, and you can do it by department, supplier, location, class, or customer type. Department will show the total consignment sales by department. So it's going to break out the consignment department. So if you have 100 different items on consignment, it will combine them into one number, one row. If you select supplier as a breakout, it will break out each of the consignment suppliers, thereby giving you a very specific number for each consignment supplier / customer, which makes it really convenient to figure out their commission and their cut for the store owner. All right, then you just run the report. Now, if you do it by department, again, you're going to get the department ID, in this case 5,000, department name, consignment, number of items, I just had 1, but you could have hundreds of items here if you're selling hundreds of consignment items. And then your total sales cost, your total revenue, and your total margin. Again, this is a very broad report. It's going to show you every single consignment item that you have. Versus the detailed supplier report, which is going to break down each of the suppliers onto their own line. So if each supplier, if a couple of suppliers come in and say, hey, I want to see, what I have, what's been sold so far for this particular week or last month or what have you, you can go ahead and put that date range criteria in. You can select detail by supplier, and then boom, you're going to get the report. So this says, yep, you sold something, the revenue was $300, the margin was 50%, so, you get $150. Well, this actually shows the amount of sales cost, so that would be for the supplier. Your revenue is also $150, because in this case, it's 50%. But those are the reports that you can get from the comparative revenue report. Again, pushing it out to Excel is very helpful. Transaction report, on the other hand, is more detailed information. It's going to give you all of the details about that transaction. And here you can go into the transaction report, which is going to be found under reports, then you'll go to sales analysis as well, but in this case, instead of revenue, you're going to select what I need to know. And then you're going to select the transaction report. And once you get there, there are going to be various report settings. Here you can set your department. You can also set your supplier. So you can get very specific to either department or supplier as well, or consignment customer / supplier. So here we have, I've just selected department, in this department consignment. So make sure the date range incorporates all of the sales for that particular, time period or items that you're selling. And then in the department range, you can put the beginning, ending department lane. This range, in this case, it's consignment and consignment. And then you have some additional details settings. So you can look at either the customer friendly view, meaning you can actually hand this document to a customer without giving out your trade secrets as to your cost, your profit, and all of that. So if you select the accounting department, that's going to give you more detailed information. I know these are very, very small representation of the reports. You can't read these more than likely, but on the back one on the bottom left hand side, it gives you not just the sales price, but it gives you the cost and it gives you the margin. So it's very specific. Again, that's why we call it the accounting department view. It's not for customers, it's for accounting department. But you have both of those options. Inventory valuation summary report. So from a software perspective, the inventory that you have in your store is counted towards your inventory valuation. However, if you want to exclude consignment for any reason, some people might say, well, it's kind of my stuff now. I'm going to be selling it for this person, so I want to count it as my inventory. Or maybe you say, well, this is still counted under my consignment customer's inventory. Either way, you can set it up to where and generate this report to either include it or exclude it. So how do you do that? So you just go in and create your inventory valuation summary report, go to reports, report area, go to inventory general, and then under general, you'll see inventory valuation summary. Choose the report pane and click next. In the report settings pane, select the department range that excludes consignment items. Since the department code is at the tail end of your department IDs, as I recommended in the beginning of this presentation, you can easily exclude it from your report settings. So if we look at the next slide, you can see here that we have, we can run department 0 through department, in this case, probably 333 ag items. And that would be our range. That range would exclude a number of things, including consignment. So again, if you don't wish to report this as part of your inventory valuation, you don't have to. You can just, again, search and run your criteria to include all departments except consignment. The other piece is the taxation. That's something else you need to consider. So are these items taxable? Well, you'll have to make that determination based on your basic governmental municipalities, but very easy to turn on or turn off taxes. In the inventory, just go and put in the part number, go to the pricing tab and select the pricing. On the pricing levels pane, you can check or uncheck the word taxable. Taxable defaults on, you'll need to turn it off if you want it off. And that is how you do consignments. Now again, consignments is simple in Paladin. If you don't care about the reporting and the receiving and all of that, just put an item in the inventory and sell it, for crying out loud. Very, very simple. But if you're doing a lot of consignments and you wish to maintain and manage those and track those professionally and give reports to your customers that you're selling items for and give them the status of whether or not the item's sold, whether it's sold or not. Some of those reports that we showed as examples were all reports that show the sales, but you also have the other reports that we made reference to, like the master report and the summary report, and those are going to report on the products whether they sold or not. So those you can use to identify items that you haven't sold, just to give the customer a status of what's happening. Now, we are at the end of this presentation. I am looking for questions. I forgot to mention that if you feel, if you have any questions, there is a question dialog box that you can enter. In the meantime, I'll just mention that there's a lot of rich content on the Paladin point of sale website. And if you go into our website, you'll see at the top of the page it says websites, meaning other websites. You have Retail Science, for example, which is where we syndicate all of our articles as to how to be better at retailing. Great content there. We also have our self-help tools at portal.paladinpos.com, and which is just called the Help Portal, and that's also dropped down on our main site. And then we have these webinars. So this webinar will be recorded and posted on here within the next 24 hours. And then in addition to that, we have a lot of training videos, which are also posted on YouTube. So there's a dozen or more training videos, which are great for acclimating your staff to the Paladin system. And you have any questions, feel free to call us at any time. It looks like we're good to go on questions. I see nothing coming in. So thank you so much for your attending. I appreciate it. God bless and stay safe. And until next time.